Yes, it looks like it.
All right, so this is Planning Board for June 9th, 2021. Do you want to bring up the agenda, Valerie?
Sure. My computer's being a little slow. It might take me a moment. All right.
All right, so we want to talk about correspondence. I see there was a number of emails in the packet you sent out.
Yes, if anyone wants more more detail on any of those items, just let me know.
Well, I think we should save any of the moderator way stuff until we talk about that later on.
Okay.
So other than that, I know Doug Story had an email about the sign bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
So we got an article in the paper about contentious sign approvals.
Yeah, I didn't read the article, but I watched that meeting, and it was pretty crazy how the selectmen went about, I think, the business. I mean, but what I did take out of it is that a 2 square foot sign for an in-home business seems kind of pretty small to me.
Very small.
Yeah,
I think that's what Doug was saying, right? He was saying
basically.
That was what Doug said. Yeah.
I missed the meeting and I didn't catch the article. Do you mind just summarizing real quickly what was discussed?
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was going to say, so the first person that came up was an in-home business, a residential neighborhood. She didn't really talk about what her business was, but I think it was on
Eric, hold on one second. So she had come to the board, I think at her last meeting, to, kind of complain about the process, about how her sign was ultimately not approved correctly by Valerie. And we, told her to take it up with the selectmen, basically.
Okay.
So just for some background on her.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So what did the Board of Selectmen basically?
So she went before the Board of Selectmen this meeting to kind of ask for a potential waiver. And they didn't grant it because they didn't want to set like a precedent of approving, something that didn't meet the bylaw, and, the bylaw is the bylaw, and, that's it. So then they went on to, and her contention was that, 2 square feet, it's so small, like what's the point of even having a sign? As long as, it's tastefully done. And she already had the sign done, so she wanted it to be approved, but they said, well, that's not our problem, basically, the bylaw's the bylaw. So then they went to the next person, who is Essex Equine, who bought the Girl Scout camp, and they have, a pretty big facility, and it's kind of more of an agricultural business, so it's not exactly the same. But I think they still follow basically the same bylaw, and the selectmen were like, well, that's fine, and they were like, well, I guess you didn't meet the bylaw, but, we're going to waive it. But I think there's some cursory penalty for not, like it's like $100 or something.
Yeah. She'd already put up the sign.
Yeah.
That was part of the problem.
Yeah. So then, the first person came back and was like, well, that's not fair. How's that process clear? And before even actually seeing Doug's email, I was thinking the same thing, I know that the selectmen, kind of, they determine, what meets the bylaw or not. But I believe the planning board sets the bylaw. I could be wrong about that.
No, I
But
think you're
that's
right. The
correct.
planning board does set it.
Yeah. So I mean, we should look at what is a proper sign for an in-home business. I think it's bigger than 2 square feet. And then maybe we can differentiate between an agricultural business like a farm, because there is no agricultural zone, it's residential zone. So if you're, was it 61B, if you're deemed a farm or an agricultural business, there's like a accessory business to, I forget it's like a special permit from the selectmen for an agricultural business. I think Jay's falls under that. And I believe that Essex Equine or Bolton, whatever they're called now, the horse farm in Bolton, Griscoe, maybe there's a bigger, square footage for that. Maybe it's 3 feet by 3 feet for in-home, and maybe it's 10 feet by 10 feet by agriculture. I don't know what the numbers are, but
I think it's worth visiting this year.
Yeah.
Certainly.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just
definitely.
gonna say, as we get into the fall, we can start maybe revisiting this as a potential thing to look at.
2 square feet does seem pretty small.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, but on the other hand, if this is in neighborhoods, it's a little less, how intrusive you want your neighbors
yeah,
in-home
that's what we
business
need to
sign
discuss.
yeah, exactly.
But I mean, like a yard sign, like a standard political sign, I think is like 2.5 by 2.5 or something like that. So,
Or a
and
real
that's-
estate sign, which is,
I don't think any of it's
I
true.
mean, real estate sign should be temporary. So there may be, so there's some more leeway that we give to temporary signs like that than
yeah.
I mean,
but
it's something to discuss, but as long as it's not like, a lit neon sign, if it's tastefully done, and, I don't really see how people would be,
Yeah, but
Inconvenience, but-
I think fluorescent orange is tasteful, and you might disagree with it. So
Well, I believe in the sign bylaw, it does talk about colors and.
yeah, I mean, my point is, what you find tasteful, other people may not, or
Yeah.
and vice versa. So,
Well, I mean, we don't need
Yeah,
to solve
so-
this tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Okay, so Valerie, somewhere I think there we usually have a list of ideas for articles for town meeting. So I guess this is one of the first ones on that list now.
One thing I just realized, Valerie, I don't think we didn't do a roll call at the very beginning. You might want to just quickly do that just to make, get it recorded on who's here.
Yes. So Michael Gore,
Here.
Eric Nyland,
Yeah.
Pete Driscoll,
I'm here.
Mark Sprague,
Here,
and Daniel Spicer.
Here. All right, we're good. Sorry, just want to get that in.
Thank you.
All right. Any other correspondence? I saw there was a planner's report.
Yes, thank you.
Valerie, did you miss me at all, or?
we always
Oh, Jim Barr.
We got a full house tonight.
Thank you, Jim. I'm sorry about that. So just a couple of grant updates. I don't know if Erica had mentioned the MAPC sub-regional group that is looking at doing a micro-transit pilot program in individual towns. And so before she had left, Erica had set me up very well to begin a pilot program in Bolton with the support of the Council on Aging. And so today I spoke with Lisa and Heather, along with some representatives from Magic, about what a pilot program could look like in Bolton. So essentially having the Clinton livery provide free rides for vulnerable populations in Bolton. So as long as the rides start and end in town, we would have a certain amount of grant money that we would be just going through. And through that, we would get a better sense of some data. So, who is going where, what kinds of rides are needed, where in the region are people going to most frequently. So it's a good pilot to start thinking about future connections and transportation gaps. And then I also submitted a grant application to the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, looking for a business district assessment and market analysis. So essentially trying to learn a lot more about what is out there currently. So the existing conditions of the business district and limited business and the mixed use overlay. So what businesses exist right now? What are the market segments for residents and non-residents? Thinking about what the trade area is for Bolton. So as the planning board considers, what developers are after, such as what's going on with the potential for Tadmore, or even, as our business district is shrinking because of housing pressures, do we have the right size business district? Should we be going for infill development? Should we be expanding the mixed use overlay? So trying to get some technical assistance so that the planning board and other boards can make some more informed decisions. And then lastly, the Master Plan Steering Committee is going to host their first public forum on Saturday, July 17th. So that will be at the Town Commons, and there'll be more information about that event coming up.
How much time would we get with the downtown initiative from a consultant?
So it's actually a fully funded grant. So it would provide us with a full report. So it's actually one that is not dictated by hours, but by the completion of that report. So staff time on that might be a couple hours a week, mostly helping a consultant thinking about questions on a survey that would go out to both residents and business and landowners.
Yeah, you brought this up in the EDC meeting on Monday. I think it's great
Yes.
to get that assessment.
So we'll see. I think they'll let us know in the early fall.
Do we want to review minutes?
I got a note from my manager today.
I was fine.
Valerie,
with these.
can you mute people who are on the board? Somebody has something going on in the background.
That should be good.
Thank you. Yeah, I looked at these before. I had no issues with it.
I'm good. I'm good too. Does anyone need more time?
Nope.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for Wednesday, May 26, 2021.
Second.
And then Valerie, do you just want to do a roll call for approval? Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
I think hold on.
Sure.
You're good.
Did you hear me?
Now we did, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
I don't know why it's going out. That happened at a meeting earlier today as well. So Michael Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
He's on mute. Mark, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
there we go.
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't get a vote.
Oh, okay, you're
sure.
kidding. And then I'll say
and Danielle Spicer.
aye.
All right.
on to reorganization of the planning board.
Yeah.
So I think the question was, Mark, did you want to chair this year? I will.
I'm fine with that. I mean, you're vice chair, so you can take it. I mean, my ego doesn't swing on whether I'm chairman or not. So
No, I'm, like I said, I generally have a lot of stuff going on, so chairing isn't my first option. If you would like to take it.
If nobody else wants it, that's fine.
We've postponed this 3 times, hoping that you would say yes.
Well, I was at the first one, but nobody else was, and then
That's right, Eric, you and I didn't make that one. That was,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
just got my
didn't-
second COVID shot and wasn't able to.
So sure, change that into a motion, and we can vote on it.
I'll make a motion to elect Mark Sprague as chair of the planning board committee for the next fiscal year.
Second.
And then do we just want to do?
Do a
all the-
roll call in favor?
Yeah.
Yep. Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer,
Aye.
and Mark Sprague.
Yeah,
You can vote for yourself.
And then we should also vote, Mike, are
if
you
I don't,
gonna,
who will, right?
Mike, do you want to stay as vice chair for next year?
Pete had offered in the previous meeting, so if he'd like to do it, he can do it. Otherwise, I will do it.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a turn and do it. That's
Okay.
absolutely fine.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to elect Pete Driscoll as vice chair for the next fiscal year for the planning board.
Second.
We'll just wait for Valerie to do a roll call.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Peter Driscoll,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer.
Whatever
Aye.
is appropriate.
I know, it's always odd.
It's fine. And Mark Sprague.
Aye.
All right.
Great.
So what I'll do for that is I have the signature sheet from the Registry of Deeds, so I can put that in the Dropbox for you all to sign.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, take it away, Mark.
Okay.
What?
Let's see. I guess the next is there was some. We need to appoint the DRB, I think.
Yes, and I've heard from David that he would need to step back for this year.
Okay.
So I think we have 3 to appoint and a vacancy to post.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. I have that in front of me here. So the. Do you have the list?
I have it in front of me. Do
Okay.
do we just need a motion? Actually, why don't Eric, you make it since I'm in the motion? That wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay.
It's for
Um,
Michelle, Tuck, myself, and Natalie Gabrielle.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to appoint Michelle Tuck, Daniel Spicer, and Natalie Gabrielle to the Design Review Board.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Peter Driscoll,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer,
Aye.
and Mark Sprague.
Aye. Okay. And then there's we need to appoint Valerie as Bolton's magic representative.
I'll make a motion to appoint Valerie Mathias as Bolton's Magic representative.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll
And
call.
roll call in favor, Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Peter Driscoll,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer,
Aye.
and Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So just for the record, I have reviewed the recording of last week or the last public hearing for the environmental pools. So I should be set to act on that tonight.
I'm not seeing the applicant present.
Okay.
If they want to continue, would they?
They did not say. Here, I'm just gonna stop sharing, just check my email a little bit just to see if they had said anything.
Yeah, because we're after 7:15, so at least we're good there.
Right. I don't see anything from them. We could hold off and take up other agenda items while we wait. You know, you're allowed to start late, but you just can't start early. So.
Yep. Okay. I guess we'll skip them for the moment. And then, so the next on the agenda is discussion and determination of whether proposed uses are in conformance with existing special permit for Wendy Harop at 5 Harvard Road.
Yes, so Wendy is here, you know, per her special permit, there is a condition in there that says if she's considering expansions and is questioning, you know, the validity of the existing special permits, she's allowed to, of course, come outside of a public hearing and just describe her her business plan or her thoughts on new activities on site for the board to then, you know, discuss whether these activities are actually covered through the special permit and through her allowance as someone running a home occupation, or if the board would rather her to open back up the special permit and go through a public hearing process. So Wendy, if you want to just describe your intended activities and also the need to have a little bit of flexibility here for your business.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and board. I appreciate your time and attention to this. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'm in a room with no fans and no air conditioning, so I'm thrilled that you can hear me. So when I first applied for the permitting process, my vision was geared towards weddings. And as time has passed, and with the last 18 months, and just with my growth and desire to serve our community as an entrepreneur, my vision for events is transitioning away from weddings to focus more on agritourism and different opportunities for people to celebrate the things that this property, the bounty of this property. And I would love to do that on a more frequent basis than what my original permit request was. As an entrepreneur, I'm an idea factory right now. So, and especially with the long amount of time of not being able to do anything, I'm really eager to do things. So what I would like to not change is the timing of events. I don't want to change the capacity of the space, but I would appreciate consideration for the frequency of opportunities that I have to open up the property for people. I have, in the original request, it was one floral design workshop a month for 12 people. And in retrospect, that was very limited thinking on my part. And I would really desire to do something perhaps on a weekly basis, not perhaps, I would like to do something on a weekly basis. I'm happy with the limited capacity. What I have in mind for this summer would be Wednesday nights, kind of a girls' night out opportunity with different, of floral design pieces, maybe an art or a craft project, but just a chance for people to be in community, especially after such a long hiatus from being able to be together. I would also like to celebrate our flowers more, and specifically our dahlias that are available in September. And we have 300 dahlias, 300 plants here. And so in the past, I've done dahlia workshops with another flower farmer in Stowe, but now are very established. So I envision having a beautiful dahlia workshop experience every Saturday and every Sunday in the month of September. So that would be 8 events as opposed to my previous request to have 3 events. Those would be during the day, 10 to 2. So all very, a max capacity of 20 people, at any one of those events. So still a very, in my estimation, a reasonable number. There's still plenty of parking in the field that is adjacent to our property, which was a part of the consideration in the original request. So the only thing that would change would be the frequency. And if I could just ask your permission to have some flexibility as far as the type of events. So as I mentioned, I'm an idea factory. So if I come up with something fun that I think would be a great fit for the people in our community or people in my community of followers, then I would love the opportunity to be able to do that within the parameters of course, time and capacity and noise and all of those things. So I'm just not sure exactly how to navigate this. And so I want to do that with your suggestions, with your support. Valerie, help me if do I mention the other items as far as like the resistance, or I just don't know what's appropriate. Oh, you're muted, honey. Nope. There you go.
That been any better?
Yeah, we can,
Very strange. Sorry, Wendy, I would say, share whatever you feel like sharing at this point. Yeah.
So if you were on the board a couple of years ago when I made this original request, you graciously approved it, and I'm so appreciative. You may remember there was an abutter who was not happy, and he came with his list and was very demonstrative in sharing his opinions. And prior to that, he had interactions with like personal guests of mine coming to the house for something that he thought was business related that he didn't like because they were just at the end of my driveway. And so he now looks for those opportunities. And we recently had a very unfortunate incident that I no longer feel safe. And I also am no longer available to be bullied and have somebody else dictate what I want to do with my life and in this beautiful space. And sorry.
Okay, take your time.
I'm not upset. It's just important to me. And this is what things that are important to me look like. So I feel very empowered by this opportunity. In the past, I allowed those interactions to delay my process with you. And I was happy to get past that. And then in this latest situation, we invited the nursing staff of the memory care facility that our loved one was at, who died during COVID, and we were not able to be there, and they provided very great care. So after things were available to open up on May 4th, we invited them to just come for 2 hours and have a celebration in the barn. And the executive director was very happy to do that and surprised her team and hired a limo. And the limo was not able to turn into our driveway. And so he dropped the people off at the end of the driveway, and that made the abutter upset. But when the limo returned to pick them up at 5 minutes to 6, he was very, very angry at that point and was harassing my guests as they got back into the limo, and then was verbally harassing me and made a threat that is not okay with me. And I spoke with, as I was returning down the driveway from that interaction, I called the building inspector because I had just spoken with him. So I knew that everything was fine, even though this wasn't a business event. They were just guests of ours. I just wanted to make sure that everything was fine, because I'm anticipating that anyone who has a phone will be getting phone calls to make sure involved my lawyer, and I am now involving you, and would like just to, I'm not the kind of person who asks for forgiveness. I'm the kind of person that asks for permission. And so that is what I am doing here, so that I can operate in a way that I know I am entitled to and have your approval. And then I will be empowered to do so, and will be able to get on with my life, I guess we should say. I don't know.
Thank you for that summary.
Great, thank you. I think, I mean, it is a pretty large reach from what was previously permitted to what you're proposing now, just as far as frequency and such. So I mean, my inclination would be to have to reopen the special permit. I mean, your neighbor can come and blather all he wants. Ultimately, it's for lack of a better thing, I would look at like the police chief to see if there have been any legitimate reports of problems or non-compliance or anything like that. Not a neighbor whining about that you're using your property for what you're allowed to use it for. I think in general the board's pretty good at kind of ignoring the noise from an unhappy neighbor and focusing on whether there's if there's a legitimate issue, if there are if there have been traffic jams every time you had an event, and that's that's one thing. If this guy just has it out for you, then I don't think that would get much traction. I mean, that's at least my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the board has to thinks about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say similar to you, just because that I think you mentioned there's specific timeframes noted in the permit with regard to frequency. It probably, I think, is appropriate to reopen the special permit, get those frequencies revised to the number that you want. I know that opens up to a public hearing, but again, as Mark mentioned, if you can get some background information to help provide to demonstrate that these frequencies are not generating any traffic impacts or anything like that, and then you've got a revised special permit with the frequencies you want, and then it's pretty cut and dry, I guess. To do that would be my stance on that. I don't know what others.
I don't think there's an issue with it, just because the only specific number was the 3 for the weddings, which is 45. But when she talked about like the smaller get-togethers, it did say monthly. It did say monthly, but we haven't heard any complaints, and I know that she's been doing these events, so I can't see there being any.
I mean, I think it's more of a formality to reopen it and adjust it. I think, I mean, a quick call to Bumper would, probably get a letter from him saying there's never been any issues there. So, that's just, we just take that as part of, that, you've run things well and there haven't been any problems, and we just change the numbers in there.
I mean, to me, it's so minor. I don't even see that that's necessary.
Well,
we can make it
going from 1 a month to.
But it's 4 events. We approved 4 events per month, basically, right? Up to 3 weddings and this. I mean, one question is it's so specific in the special permit, and I guess the question is, does it need to be?
Right. I don't think it needs to be at all.
I mean, when we first wrote the decision, it probably just didn't need to be that specific. I mean, the first line of of what she was asking for was, to celebrate special occasions, community building, or teaching workshops. I mean, I would almost leave it at that, right? Why even call out
a number,
what the specific events that you want to do? I mean, maybe it's worthwhile restricting the number of events, but I mean, it could be something reasonable. But I mean, because if she wants to do something besides, floral arranging, right? I mean, do we need to then do another special permit for that?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But as long as whatever we write for the special permit is broad enough that it covers, celebrating special occasions, community building, teaching workshops, and aren't part of the, down lower, we call out things that they can't do, no hazardous materials, no this and that. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think revising it, maybe that, that we allow, right now, instead of the, I mean, I think you're looking for, the weekly flower arranging and then 2 events every weekend, basically. I think was what you were looking
for. What that's just for the month of September, but again, as you noted, sorry,
you could say up to that. I mean, that's how word stuff is, up to whatever you think your maximum amount would be in a whatever month, if September is going to be your kind of busy month.
Sure.
Yeah, so I would say up to weekly events with 2 events on the weekend or something like that. And I agree, being vague on the specific type of events so that you're not pinpointed, so you don't have to come back, makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I think that requires reopening the special permit.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I would probably say, that we should, just to simplify everybody's life going forward, maybe it's, that we allow up to 8 events, April through November, and up to 16 events in September. Or September and October sort of thing, just so that you've got the flexibility, if you get, a brainstorm that you want a Monday night, something, so, one month or something, it's covered. And then you don't have to, come back to us or worry about it or anything.
Yeah, maybe give yourself some way to grow if you want to, potentially.
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Also, you know, so yeah, I know of her events, like, you know, I think you should even say something like, if it's under some number of 15 people, like, I think you could have as many as you wanted, you know, versus if it's a bigger number where maybe it's going to be like a parking issue, then you could start. I don't think you even need to get into the specifics of a number. I mean, just like Mike said, just generalize it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I mean, I think what we wrote was kind of what you had proposed up front. And yeah, I mean, we didn't really, you know, in hindsight, we probably should have said, okay, that's what you want now, let's broaden it to give you flexibility. But, you know, so now we're doing that, but, you know, I think we just need to, you know, unfortunately follow the process and you know, to amend with the permit. You know, and I mean, I would probably you just reach out to the, you know, chief of police and just have him send us a letter, just, you know, saying that he's never had any problems with any of your events. And, you know, in a lot of ways that carries a lot more weight than a disgruntled neighbor does. So, so,
Thank
okay.
you. And is there a, sorry, this might be for Valerie later, but I can start that process today, however you do that. I know I was one of the first people to ever use this bylaw, so there wasn't a lot of precedent
Yeah.
when I did it as well. So whatever that process is, I would like to start that right now.
Yes, so I can send you an email tomorrow with the application information and how to get in a butters list and all of that. So we can put that together this summer. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Can you imagine that's a very long, like I'm not going to be able to do anything this year?
Oh no, more that it's going to take, you know, a couple weeks in order to post for the public hearing. So, you know, it may not be until the July meeting of the planning board that it gets discussed.
And that was what was so incredible.
But I still think you've got flexibility to do, you know, I would say up to 4. I mean, we approved 4 events per month. I mean, that's how I see that, whether it's a wedding or whether it's a flower workshop. I mean, if that's what you're doing right now, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I say do what you're going to do. Do whatever you're going to do in June.
I mean, a floral design workshop is kind of like a party, so yeah, that kind of covers it there. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I think we'll get this done pretty quick. I don't see any real issues with it. You know, I would also, you know, reach out to any of your other neighbors that, or, you know, any of the other butters that you get along with that you know, to kind of counterbalance the grumpy old man.
Not old.
Well, grumpy young man. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's, I mean, fundamentally, I don't see any issues. Yeah, I mean, if other butters come in with, you know, valid complaints, then, you know, we need to review those and see what needs to be done. But if there's no other real issues, then I don't see any reason we wouldn't broaden this out for you.
Thank you. I have one more question, if I might ask.
Okay.
So with Bolton being a right to farm community, I know there are some allowances for agritourism. Do we need to incorporate that? I mean, there's a barn bylaw, you know, the special permit applies to the barn because I have one, but there are other farms that do some things that I would like to do that's really outside of the barn. So I just want to make sure, you know, that if that has to be mentioned in this process as well, like, does it combine or is it 2 separate things, or how would you like that to be presented? And are they compatible when someone is a farm and has a barn permit? Or I realize that I'm probably the only person doing this right now, but I would appreciate your insight.
So this special permit was only for really governing the what you could use the barn for. I'm not sure what other.
I don't think you need a special permit for agritourism is how I read the information.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I need more specifics to kind of get a better idea of what what the business is, to understand whether it's something that and I don't know whether that'd be Valerie or the building inspector or selectmen would be the people to weigh in on that.
So what do you mean by what do you mean by that? Agritourism?
It's when we grow flowers here for florists, and we have it's a small scale farm, but when you're the one that's doing all the planting and the weeding, it feels quite large scale. So there are opportunities for education around that for people that would like to learn how to do these gardening or farming tips. We have chickens and we have the property that just lends itself to a great education and enjoyment space. You could do garden tours and just things that are more like, maybe an Airbnb experience where people come and we introduce them to Bolton and they then go to the winery, like all of these things. So they're just different things that are a draw that I know are available just because we are a right to farm community. So I just don't know though if you require or think it would be wise to put wording that marries those two, or I'm sorry.
I'm almost thinking just because the special permit was for the barn bylaw and specifically using that. So I would think when you amend it, keep that specific for that, what you want there. And it might be another submission. And I don't know if it's with the planning board or, like Mark said, with the board of selectmen or just an inquiry with the building inspector. I'm sure Valerie, you might be able to provide some more highlight on this, but I think at this point it probably makes sense to keep them separate. Okay. Unless Valerie, you think it's something that would be okay to combine.
All hear me? Am I
Yeah.
working? Okay. I'm thinking that with the lesson learned here of not wanting to be too prescriptive, I think this special permit was written for activities within the barn, just as you're saying. So it could be a finding that we understand that there are other activities associated with agriculture or tourism or a home occupation existing on site, but I wouldn't go further than that because I really do think it's a different thing, and it's not a permit that the planning board would provide. And I think that with agritourism, you are essentially, because you're certified as a farm, I think that's your ticket. So.
Yeah, and then that's also a reason to keep the numbers and stuff fairly broad. So if you had an event planned and then inclement weather forced you to move it inside, that's not going to mess up the rest of your scheduling or something. So
I was afraid, and I had very limited thinking when I presented. Well, not that same person, and I'm happy. I like this one better.
If I remember at the time, it was this was kind of hitting these numbers was kind of a stretch goal for you. You would have been ecstatic if you could have hit the numbers that were in the permit. So I think it's great that you've grown beyond that, and let's get the permit updated and let you go from there.
Can I bring one more thing up? And I think I've heard you talk about this in the past, Wendy. Last year we passed the bed and breakfast bylaw, which it defines two different, it defines a bed and breakfast home, which is, I think, 3 and under, or a bed and breakfast establishment, which is 4 to 10 rooms. I don't know if that's something that you're interested in, but we have that new bylaw to allow you to be like an official bed and breakfast too, if that was something you were thinking.
I think that all the time. So thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I will definitely look into that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate your service.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to seeing you back soon.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Okay, do we have anybody from environmental pools here yet?
No, it doesn't look like it. At this point, I would, we could continue with the items on the agenda. Perhaps there was a confusion around the time, or we could just continue it to the next planning board meeting.
I guess why don't we go on to the rest of the business, and we'll come back to it and we can continue it at that point. Okay. So next item, and this way Danielle didn't want to be chairman again here, is Keys Farm Subdivision Moderator Way work plan update and discussion of enforcement.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I can, if you'd like me to provide
all this, yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Bob is unable to make it, and he's unable to send a representative as well to have this discussion with the board. I, put this on the agenda as the Conservation Commission has moved forward with their enforcement order and fines for activities within their jurisdiction that are also, of course, within the planning board's purview. And I have asked, followed up with Bob since he last met with the planning board on April 28th for a work plan. And essentially where the planning board ended it with him last time we saw him on April 28th was that he would provide us with a detailed work plan, including timelines, who is going to do the work, what the work involves. At that point, we would allow him, we would have our engineer review that timeline, and then we would allow him to begin that site work. He said that he would be completing the site work within 2 weeks, a 2-week work timeline that would end at Memorial Day. And then at which point he would want the planning board, along with our consulting engineer, to visit the site and review punch list items and to inspect the work that was done. So in the meantime, there has not been site work outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction done. And I was only provided a work plan just in the last hour or two, which does not represent what I would have wanted to see. I have seen the work plan that his engineer provided to the Conservation Commission, and it's exactly what we're after. So it has timelines, has who's doing the work. So I'm simply asking them to provide us with the same plan, but for the full site. And I can show you what I've gotten. So this is what I've gotten from him is tomorrow and Friday, we're planning to work on the slope of Pond 3. I believe that's the stormwater basin that is at the cul-de-sac. And then we're going to hydroseed the area around Pond 2 and 3 as well. And we're going to hand seed the wood chipped areas as previously discussed. I did respond back to him. And I may have been more forceful than you may have been, but I you know, am willing to have you all pull back what I have requested of him. You know, I'm essentially saying that this is not good enough and that the board does need more detail and just more, we need more from him at this point. So he has asked that we schedule a walkthrough of the site next week after he has completed this work. So I guess, you know, my question to the board at this point is, are we sticking with the intent of that we set out on April 28th, or instead would we want him to continue to work towards compliance with the Conservation Commission's enforcement order while planning to meet with him on site next week?
I think the conservation enforcement order is kind of separate from us. I mean, bottom line is that needs to be addressed. And I'm sure that Rebecca is going to be spearheading that and making sure they're in compliance. I just had a question. I know we talked, Valerie, about potentially having Niche go out there, especially with some of the recent rainfall events we've had, and being able to see the site. Were they able to go out to document, you know, anything recently?
Yes. So they were on site this morning, and I can share. Am I sharing my screen right now? Can you see?
Yep.
Can you see this email from Steve, or are you still seeing the planning board?
We just see the planning board, just the planning board page.
Okay. So during this meeting, he actually shared the report. So I have not, of course, read this. Okay. So you're able to see this now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, just looking at quickly, there's 6 items that need to be addressed. If I'm looking at this very quickly.
So regardless of his work plan idea, you know, this is what he needs to complete immediately.
Yeah, and I think number 6 gets to the point that goes beyond the Concom jurisdiction, and what we've really said all along is that, you know, he's the holder of the NIPD's permit that covers, you know, the erosion sediment control for the site and specifically with regard to the stormwater basins and everything. And if that's not being adhered to, you know, there's issues, obviously.
So that number 6, you know, it's discussing a weekly report and reports after storms. That's not something that they're expecting them
No.
to self-evaluate.
No, that's something that is done by the contractor. So they would have their own, someone that's qualified to do it. And they should have somewhere on site a document, which is the SWPPP, which is a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And they would have, you know, weekly site inspections and, you know, a site inspection grader niche. I guess the question is, do they have that documentation? And if they don't, that's clearly something that they need to be complying with.
So I've received, unfortunately, so Rebecca and I have been quite coordinated in sharing information and understanding that we're both on the same page with the site. Rebecca has been receiving the SWIP inspection reports.
Okay.
I have not, and I have asked Dillis and Roy to provide those to me, but recently they have let me know that those SWIP reports are for the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction only, and that in fact they are not the engineer for the full site, which is you know, quite confusing for me. So I don't know, you know, Danielle, in your experience, I would believe that the SWIP inspections should cover the full site.
That is correct. As part of the NIPD's permit, he got a permit for the site. And I think, I know it's a little bit of a gray area because once the lots are sold, there is some confusion as to, whether he still needs to do that. But I think as a planning board, just in the past, we've always kind of stated that we felt whoever holds the permit, holds the requirement for compliance of that permit until construction is done and completed. And I know it is a bit of a gray area, but we've asked him to basically comply with that. I think, last fall he attempted to do that with, areas that were, the erosion sediment that we were talking about along that hillside. It seems like he's really right now focusing on just Concom jurisdiction. It's absurd to have different SWIP inspections for, different jurisdictions. You would just have, I mean, the SWIP is for the site. So you would have SWIP inspections for the site. So wherever there's erosion sediment control issues, you would note them. And you wouldn't divvy it up per jurisdiction. Obviously, there's an enforcement order out there with regard to the Concom, so that's probably why, these are being more thorough within that jurisdiction. And it's a little bit difficult with us. I guess I don't know with regard to, so it's a NIPD's permit through EPA. So, it's not a permit that we control or anything. However, as part of our requirements for just the permit, we said you have to be in compliance with the NIPD's permit. So, I think there is some overlay there, but as far as I'm not sure exactly how that enforcement works, but that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of the gray area.
So thinking about what our game plan should be here, I can share this with the development team and let them know that these 6 items need to be addressed immediately prior to other site concerns that they may have. I'm not sure.
I mean, I would say that I think that's absolutely appropriate, and I'll let other people on the board voice their opinion, but I think it's appropriate to forward this and say, we feel that you're the permittee, you're the holder of this, and you're in non-compliance with your NIPD's permit. And if we can refer back to one of the conditions, I'm almost positive we have a condition in there that requires compliance with that, and that these need to be not just within the Concom jurisdiction, but they need to be addressed. This isn't anything new. I mean, we brought this up before last fall, and that's where we had all those discussions last fall about this. So it isn't anything new. I don't think we've changed our stance on this at all. I'll let others on the board, if they want to chime in here, but that's kind of how we've felt where we stand with that.
Valerie. So we asked for a walkthrough about a month and a half ago, and let me get my timeline straight here. That we asked for the walkthrough, and they said, and Bob said that he would do the work. Now he's asking for a walkthrough now.
Yes. So he said that he wanted to wait to do a walkthrough until the work is done. He feels that he's going to complete Basin 3 in the next few days and do a walkthrough then. But again, I haven't seen a full work plan as I'm expecting from him. So it's unclear to me if he feels like that is substantial completion, essentially, or near that. And what the purpose of a site walk would be at that point. Now, it does make sense. It's the planning board's initial inclination was to have a site visit before he does this work. Otherwise, the work he does is at his own risk. If it hasn't been approved by our consulting engineer, or reviewed by our consulting engineer and approved by the board. So
what's the fallout now? Or if there is a fallout? That's what I'm wondering, because I was wondering, I was really on the fence of having the walkthrough before. What are our options?
yeah. We can stick to the original, to that plan of having him provide us the work plan and then permitting him to begin the work, and then have our walkthrough and punch list review at the end of the completion of that work, and then therefore a bond reduction discussion at that point.
We asked for a walk plan, a plan a month and a half ago, and we haven't received it yet, correct?
Right, exactly. So how do we compel him to do this?
Well, I would ask, is there another option to look at enforcement? And I'm not 100%, I'm just asking, I'm just inquiring, just because I know that this is a little bit of a gray area with regard to the compliance. So that's where I was just wondering.
So now that we have this report from Niche, we are, we're more able to draw a link between what's happening on site and non-compliance with the permits. So the planning board's able to, I believe you would ask that, take a vote and ask that the building inspector administer tickets. So it's up to the board if you feel like we're at that point. I'm newer to this project, and it's always my inclination to try to bring someone into compliance. However, as my emails have shown, prior to today, I've only heard from Bob, once in the past few weeks. I've had several emails go completely unreplied to. So I've felt quite a bit of silence from him. So.
Yeah, in my opinion, we're way past that point, right? He hasn't done anything we've asked. We've been incredibly patient, since last year. And I mean, I saw that email he sent you after 5 today, and it doesn't even come to the meeting, right? So I'm supportive of doing as much as we can for enforcement. I don't know if we can do something similar to the Concom did, or if we can find him, right? I mean, that's my opinion. Whatever, as much as we can do, I completely support at this point, because it's just gotten ridiculous. I don't know. It doesn't seem like he wants to do anything to address these concerns.
I agree 100%. I mean, we were very willing to be able to we had it all set up for a site visit, and then he asked, through the emails that we just let him do the work, and this is unacceptable in my eyes. And I hate to use that word, but I feel we need to do something, because this isn't right.
I think what I was looking at it is, it seems like when he got the enforcement order from the Concom, that's when things were being addressed within that jurisdiction. So I'm feeling a little like the reason why the planning board stuff isn't being addressed is because we haven't gone to that extreme. So I hate, like Pete, you just mentioned, I don't think any of us like to go to this area. Obviously, if there's a way to have it work out to get in compliance, but where time is going by, it's not fair to the residents. And it's going by and not being addressed. So I would say I am in full agreement as well with putting forth an enforcement, or however it needs to be worded.
Review our options for an enforcement
Thank you.
action. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've cut him an awful lot of slack. Certainly a lot more than the homeowners here would have liked us to. But, we usually, we try to work with the developer to, and he's clearly not working with us at this point. So I think he needs to be reminded that, that he does need, that, he needs to address our concerns as well.
And he needs to get back into compliance. He needs
And
to.
he needs to, well, I would change the wording on that a little bit. I would say he needs to get into compliance.
Okay, sorry.
I'm not sure he's ever been in compliance given the erosion issues that have been there since day one.
Yeah, and so just a clarification as I think about how to write this letter. So getting into compliance in this situation would mean addressing these items on this list. Would it mean, it would mean providing weekly SWIP reports.
Yeah, I just say we want to get a copy. We want to get a copy of all the SWIP inspection. And I would be careful to say we want a copy of all SWIP inspections, and SWIP inspections should not just be for the Concom jurisdiction, that they should be for the site.
It should be for everything that we requested earlier, a month and a half ago.
And per the permit.
Yeah, he needs, bottom line is he needs to get himself into compliance with the special permit that was issued and all the conditions that are there. That's the weekly reporting, that's getting the erosion addressed, and all the runoff addressed. It's dealing with these issues. It's, everything else that's in the permit needs to be, and he either needs to provide a very detailed work plan on how he's going to come into compliance with those, or we need to start, putting enforcement action in place.
Should it be revisited of like everything that was on the list? Again, as I remember, 2 months ago with curb cuts and all the paving and everything else like that, is that unacceptable, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that there are two different issues, but feel free to disagree with me. I think there is completing the special permit, so completing the subdivision, and then there is getting the site into compliance in terms of stormwater concerns. So
yeah, I think there's still the punch list items, which are a little bit separate, and those can be done, obviously I would hope that he'd want to have them done in time for potentially road acceptance, for us to look at, the end of this year. But there's non-compliance issues that need to be addressed immediately.
So the way I would write this would essentially mean that that ticketing would end, once we're able to get an engineer on site to say that all of these items have been addressed and that the site is in compliance with stormwater.
Yeah. The punch list items, aren't necessarily enforcement items, but certainly the stormwater management issues are.
Yeah, I think
November rolls around and he has a bunch of stuff that he promises to do if we support road acceptance. He needs everything done and buttoned up, and needs to come in with zero punch list items for us to support the road acceptance. But yeah, whether we piggyback on Conservation Commission's enforcement, just add our own, the site-wide stormwater management issues, or issue our own. I'm not sure it matters,
Yeah,
as long as it gets done.
How much longer before road acceptance? I don't know. If history repeats itself again, are we going to be revisiting this for road acceptance? I don't know.
Well, he needs to model himself after Houghton Farm Road, not after any other roads that have squeaked through in the last possible second. So
I think it's fair to the citizens of the area.
Yeah, I think, I think,
We've been giving them a lot of leeway to get this stuff done, and it just hasn't gotten done, and it's frustrating on.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think I think Mitch should, you should probably get, review some of the emails from the residents. I know there's one about water, continuing to flow long after, the storms are over. Is that is that a normal thing, or is there, a problem with some of the piping that he did? And then, we need to review things like that too.
I agree, but it's the stuff that we agreed on a month and a half ago. That is that done?
Yep.
And
And Valerie, you don't need to worry about being too blunt with him.
Okay. Thank you.
He doesn't seem to respond to, niceties. I'm not sure he responds to bluntness either, so, but that's. Okay.
All right.
Great, okay.
It does look like we have a hand raised. I don't know if the
Yeah,
chair does
okay.
want to have public input. I think it's, it may be fair to keep this as a discussion with the planning board, but it's up to you.
I'll take a couple of comments if they're kind of relevant to the, it's looking at stormwater enforcement actions. I guess Dan.
Hi,
Yes. Myself. Yeah.
Yes, hi, my name's Dan Costa. I'm at 91 Moderator Way. So from listening to you folks, I understand there's kind of two different columns there for enforcement. There's one regarding storm drain issues, and then the other one is punch list. And it seems like roadways or erosion matters are being discussed for enforcement. And one particular matter for me is the driveway transitions. And I would assume, I guess that would fall under the punch list. And I'm wondering at what point does that become an enforcement matter that some teeth can be behind? I guess I'm just looking for what's the distinction.
So I think with that, it's basically when we have niche kind of review the punch list items after they've been done, before we would look to accept road acceptance. That's where we would look for those compliance to come into place. So it's not an immediate concern. He basically, has to, I mean, that's kind of that work plan that we were asking for as well, just to kind of get an idea of when all of the items would be done. But that's when those driveway transitions would be looked at. We had specific requirements that we called out last fall of how those need to be redone. And so we would look when he does go to do those, we would look to niche to review those to make sure those were done in compliance to what we required last fall. And that's where we would be looking for that.
Danielle, do you remember if we put a deadline for him to address those this spring?
I don't think we put a deadline for when those needed to be addressed. It was just obviously those needed to be addressed before we would look to accept roadway acceptance. Like
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask? Can we get a date? Can we get something at this time? What is preventing us from setting a deadline for the punch list items to be completed at this moment?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just not something that's within subdivision control law.
I mean, I think kind of the date would be, before the paving has to be done, which would be November 15th or whatever it is. I mean, all that stuff needs to be done before the paving, right?
Okay, so that sounds like that's an assumption of what to expect, but it doesn't sound like a date that we can all work together or us residents can hang on to. Because frankly, the very last fall meeting, I accepted that we were gonna have some action begin in April. So, you know, just like all my neighbors, we kind of hunkered down and said, let's wait. And obviously we're here. So I'm asking, I understand you can't do this because of that. So I'm asking, what can we do to have a date so that we can look forward to? Because he's playing you guys, he's playing us. And if we're, can I ask, please have a date that these punch list items, because
we cannot dictate. So unfortunately, we cannot dictate necessarily the work and the order of the work that he performs. And
what about by the time they need to be completed by? I mean,
so unfortunately, they only need to be completed by when he applies for road acceptance, which would be probably late in the fall.
But that's not an important thing for him at all. He is not so much a landlord or a mayor, but he's a street lord over our street, and he has free reign to do things on our street. And he has free reign to encroach onto what we have come to accept as our property, several 10 feet or so into our property. So he's got this thing, and I'm going to move on to my next item because I'm apparently.
Well, could I say one thing to you, Dan?
Yes.
Dan, I mean, what we do hold over him is the bond. So if he wants his, whatever it is, 250 grand.
But if the cost of him getting these things done are more than what the bond is, business-wise, he can go ahead and eat the bond and walk away, which he's already done in this town, which is another thing I'm kind of curious about. So I guess to wrap up that point and help this meeting move along, we're not going to have a date. It's really up to when Bob decides this.
I mean,
when he decides he wants to apply for approval, that's when there will have a date.
No, by the time he applies for approval, everything has to be done.
Oh, but that could be this year or next year or the year after, right? I mean, that could be.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. On our street about 2 weeks ago, he put some
development.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that's just unfortunately the reality of a development. Generally a developer wants to, get in, get his work done and get out and not linger the way that Bob seems to be doing. But, and Bob has gone, kind of radio silent at this point. So we can't even, so this would be something that, if we do a site, if and when we do a site visit, this would be one of the items on the punch list that we want to try to push him to get done sooner rather than later, because it also affects the stormwater. It has a lot of different implications that he needs to get, that all tie together. So, but we can't speak for him. We don't dictate what his scheduling looks like. So it's kind of hard, so we can't sit here and say by August, by August 5th, these will be taken care of, because we don't have that control. Unfortunately, it's something that has to come from him.
Okay. My next comment is weeks ago when the construction vehicles appeared and the pile of dirt appeared in the cul-de-sac, a couple giant heavy metal plates appeared encroaching into the street and also going across the sidewalk. And I assume this is to allow a way for the construction vehicles to go over. My question is there any, even though the street's not approved by a town, are items allowed to be hang into the street, or actually are plates like this allowed to be left on a sidewalk in a community that has residents, considering that they are now not wheelchair accessible?
I don't believe that sidewalk is required to be, it's a sidewalk that's adjacent to a road. I don't know if there were any requirements in the special permit that required it to be ADA accessible. I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, I have to look over the special permit.
All right.
To see.
I guess I'll look into that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to any of my neighbors who would like to speak. I'm sure they have lots of wonderful points that they'd like to get across. So I'll concede my points.
Okay, very briefly, Liz.
Yeah, sorry, this is Jason Hutchins.
Okay.
So a couple, 75 model, right? A couple points for the stormwater. So I understand that you're looking for a plan, and these are just some points I hope you're looking into. So there's some things with the bylaws on the type of topsoil that's required, and especially the ground near the going into those basins. What, basin 3, I think it is up top there. I mean, you're not supposed to have stones greater than 1 inch, and those are stones that are like 8 to 12 inches. So I hope that we get some sort of plan that he's not just going to throw seed over that, and then after the fact have to rip it all up to get in compliance with the bylaws, that we're going to actually make sure that he, as part of his plan that Valerie's been asking for continuously, he's going to dig that out, get rid of the stones, put down the topsoil, and then seed it. And then the second thing along with that is I hope that we're going to continue fines until vegetation is established, not that he just seeded. Because if we recall last year, he seeded 4 or 5 times and nothing took. So I'd hope that we're looking at this in terms of coming into compliance means vegetation is established. And if he doesn't seed until October, it's probably not going to be established until the following year. And so it may be prudent to make those points when we're sending him a letter, so that way he can, be a little more expeditious about getting some seeds down. Because he also can water, and we can see the evidence of that in some of the trees that are down at the bottom by that basin. They're dry as a bone, and et cetera, and there's no grass growth. So I just don't want to see things done wrong 2 or 3 times before they're done right. Which is, I assume, which is why you're asking for that plan before he starts work. But I just want it in totality, and I just want to bring up those points just for consideration. But that's it.
Okay, great. And last, Heather.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
So going back to some of the things that Dan said about the paving. So I was wondering, because now the paving has caused issues on my own lawn, in my own driveway, where now everything is starting to build up and I'm getting puddles of water at the end of my driveway. Everything is essentially melting. How do we address that? Should I expect him to just come and pave my entire driveway, or what happens then?
Without seeing it, it's kind of hard to comment on it. I mean, in theory, and I guess this is speaking as a non-lawyer, but I don't know whether your driveway still falls under your home warranty, or whether it's beyond that point at this point.
I would also just add to it, we haven't gotten to the point where we're going to have Niche do this final punch list items, and these are absolutely appropriate items for Niche to review, at the end of the driveway. That transition where it meets the road. So if there is all of a sudden ponding that wasn't there before, maybe there's some grading, that needs to be looked at a little bit to make sure, during the winter there isn't freezing and stuff like that. So I would think that could be, when Niche is out there looking for those final items, it could be a potential one to look at and to see potentially how to address.
Yeah, because this wasn't an issue before they paved and then, graded up my driveway a little bit. So I never had the puddling at the bottom of my driveway, but now there's a severe issue where it's now ruining my lawn.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe, so Valerie, if we want to just kind of put a note down as another item for Niche to just kind of keep track of. I know that there's a lot of them, but I would think that'd be one we'd want to look at to make sure it's that the driveway hasn't either settled or something hasn't changed that's now made it, not compliant.
I've been there for 2 years. The driveway is settled, and I've had to have my driveway repaved twice because we have incompetent people. So that's who we're dealing with, incompetent people. And the reason why nothing's been done is because Rhino pulled all of his trucks out of Bolton. Okay, so let's be clear. Like, they got into some little sort of tiff, not anything I care about. All I care about is my neighborhood, like I've mentioned several times. But as you guys probably know, there's several neighborhoods that are not being cared for at this point. I don't care about the other neighborhoods. I care about my neighborhood and the children in my neighborhood. So I need some sort of timeline when my neighborhood is going to be safe for my own community, in my own yard, my own child. I need something. You guys have given us basically nothing. As I've stated previously, we need advocates. We really do. And clearly Bob doesn't show up for anything. Like I've said a million times, he'll talk, but he won't show up. And that's where we are now. And it's disgusting, it's saddening, it's heartbreaking. And there's nothing us as a community that can really do anything about it, except for you guys. I mean, unless we go above you guys, but we're not trying to do that. We are a solid community. We stick together. We're awesome, you know, through thick and thin. Like we've always been there for one another. But at what point do we get an estimate of a time frame of when this is going to be done? None of us have had mail, which is a whole separate issue, which is very disconcerting. It's very upsetting because everyone is paying for these stupid PO boxes. So do we contact Bob about that too? Because our street's not approved. Like, what, we need help. What do we do at this point to make sure that the community is not only safe, but the fact that like we're not being taken care of?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do.
If you look at Century Mill stables, or not stables, I'm sorry, that's where my daughter goes horseback riding. But Century Mill Estates, like they have this nice little plaque. They have these wonderful trees growing in. They have legitimate solid beds around the trees. And I sat there almost for 2 years watching somebody, which is Bob's grandson, make mud piles around the trees. Like, how is that even legitimate or fathomable to anybody? Like the 40B down at the end of the road looks like a piece of trash.
I think we're getting a little off topic, but
does the HOA fee?
We're a little bit straight here.
Hold on. I have too much to talk about, which is fine. But what about the pond at the beginning of the neighborhood? Who is supposed to take care of that? Is that the basically Section 8?
Oh, now we can. Yes, sorry, Valerie.
Okay,
We couldn't hear
great.
you.
Yeah.
Section
Yeah, I
8
think this
to
has
take care of that, even though they have no money.
Yeah, I think this has strayed a little bit, and I just want to just ensure that residents and folks on the call here are making sure that we're asking the chair to speak, and if the chair is trying to change the subject, we do need to respect that. So
I do respect it, and I'm sorry if I have 10 million things on my own punch list, but I do respect you guys. I'm trying to understand more about why this has taken so long, why we keep giving him more time for these walkthroughs. This was supposed to already happen. He had till June 4th to fix all this crap. Nothing's been done. He's actually been in the neighborhood several times over the houses that's about to be sold, about the 40B that, you know, he can't sell to save his life. So I don't know anybody who would want to move into a yard that looks like rocks and, you know, a bunch of 4-leaf clovers and flowers that are really weeds. So who takes care of all of this stuff?
So we're working within the parameters, I think, that we're allowed to. I think you have to just understand the planning board does not have complete authority. We're not an OPM. We're not, you know, I mean, we have certain parameters that we need to work within. With regard to a time frame, as was mentioned earlier, we can't give that to you. That needs to come from Bob. We're going to start the process, though, of giving an enforcement towards him. We think that is hopefully the fastest way we are going to get action from him and start to see some results. And I think that, I hate to go that route, but I think that's the only route we have left to do to really get some response from him. And hopefully that will start getting the items that we talked about addressed. And really, when we start looking at everything, there's, you know, we've talked about the non-compliance issues as well as the punch list items. So there's both of those that need to be addressed and as they are done, we will have Niche reviewing those to make sure that, I know as other residents were concerned that hopefully this is done once and done right. And it's, we can move forward with that.
So how as a community can we trust Bob Pace and Rhino, who is not existent anymore, to make sure that this job is done in the correct manner, which it never has been? Like I said, I've been living here for 2 years now, and I've seen the utmost worst work I've ever seen in my entire life. So
I think what we rely on, we rely on our engineering peer reviewer to review, to go out there and review the work after it's done to make sure it's been in compliance, and that's where we have jurisdiction. Outside of that, I mean, Valerie, feel free to add to that, but I believe that's really the limit of how we can, review whether that's been in compliance or not.
okay, so coming back to the 40B, like the little wonderful pond that doesn't exist, the landscaping of the 40B and, the little wonderful nothing pond that resides across the street, like, should we just go down and mow it ourselves? Like, what do we do? Because I walked over there today and, I'm 5'5" and it's 3 feet tall. Should I just call my own landscaper?
The maintenance for the stormwater basin, is that what you're?
Yes, and for the 40B, because there's an HOA fee that Bob's not paying into. And so do you expect somebody who literally is, I guess, technically indigent, to go and mow a bunch of rocks and a bunch of poop? Like, what can I expect from that? Because the entrance of my neighborhood, as you've probably seen, looks like white trash trailer park. Let's be real.
So Valerie, my understanding is the maintenance of the stormwater basins are all still under Bob's jurisdiction, so to speak. And then once the town is, granted road acceptance, the town will actually maintain those stormwater basins because they are from the roadway. Is that correct? So right now, maintenance of those stormwater basins is Bob's requirement. And if not maintained, I think we have those on multiple items, and that's part of the stormwater component that we're talking about. Mark, is there anything else you wanted to?
No, I mean, I'm not sure what 40B you're referencing. I mean, the affordable, the 2 affordable units, or
yeah, that's what she's talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those, I mean, yeah, I mean, I assume that they're responsible for maintaining their own property, same as any other homeowner is.
Yeah, it's just the basins, the stormwater basins.
The basins, I think, when are the developer's responsibility until the town accepts the road. And if they're not being maintained properly, then that's going to impact their effectiveness as stormwater management structures and, our compliance issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, and I think we don't need to go back to the email, but that was part of the email that I thought Niche had noted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Danielle, I actually have a question for you, Mark, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So our standard, procedure is, whatever you pay by November, it gets through the winter, and then road acceptance if everything makes it out in the spring. But, with this particular property, what we're most interested in is the stormwater runoff. I mean, and that's what, like May, June. I mean, would we feel comfortable as a town not going through another, spring, thaw or melt, I guess? How does that all work? I mean, because that's what's most, concerning of this particular property, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding what your question is, though.
My question is, we're going to miss that cycle. If he got all the punch list done and he paved and the paving kind of made it through, but we didn't see what a spring runoff looked like or spring rains.
Oh, you're saying. So I mean, I will say stormwater is year round.
Yeah.
You can get, and there's stormwater changing. While we, may have some wet springs, you still can get big torrential downpours all throughout the year. You can get a lot of snow and anything like that. So, you know, really what you're looking for in the springtime is when you have high groundwater, it's just how it's infiltrating and everything like that. But there's no reason to not be able to see that pond is working at any point of the year. Clearly, if it's, you know, when it's not working, you know, if it's overgrown, it's not being cleaned out, it's not draining. I mean, those are all signs where it needs to be maintained, and it needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed as soon as possible because we have rainstorms all throughout. So that's why I think that's under one of those issues that need to be addressed as soon as possible.
So you think that we, you know, we would have sufficient evidence if it's working or not by the time road acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, Eric, I mean, you know, we let the pavement sit through the winter to make sure that it's you know, adhered properly, all that sort of thing. But there's another round of inspections in the spring before, you know, and, you know, if there are issues, we could get to town meeting and we could recommend against, you know, we can change our recommendation at town meeting to not support the road because of drainage issues.
Right.
Yeah, luckily it's never happened, but there's nothing that would, you know, I mean, our initial vote on acceptance is based on the engineering work and that the punch list is resolved. But if other things come to light after the fact, you know, we can change that recommendation.
Okay.
So, okay. So I think Valerie, you know what you need to draft now. Okay. So I think we're done with that for tonight. So I guess we'll go back to I'll go back to environmental pools, and I guess just a motion to continue it to our whatever time is open at our next meeting.
I mean, we want to just do
one last
7.
thing, it's Heather. I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it might be more beneficial to actually make a pond, like a fishing pond, than to have like this stuff drained every 72 hours, which it will never happen.
So
I grew up in a neighborhood with a pond. It was beautiful. It was awesome. The kids went fishing. You know, there was turtles, ducks, you name it. So at this point, like, can we at least do that somewhere? Because
unfortunately,
we're almost at a loss.
Unfortunately, that changes the design, and it was designed as a stormwater basin. It was meant to do that. So that would be a change in the design.
Well, there's been numerous changes in the design, and the design honestly blows. Clearly, hence we can't even, you know.
We can talk a little bit further tomorrow, Heather, if you want to just give me a call. But I'm sorry. I think that for tonight, we do need to move on.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be definitely a change in plan that would probably require more engineering and additional work on their part, and they're not doing the work that they need to already. So, you know, anything additional would never happen. So,
yeah, I understand that fully.
So
I'll make a motion to continue, I guess. Valerie, I'll make a motion to continue to the next hearing at 7:15. However, if you want to just touch base and see if they are looking to attend or if they want to continue it further. But I think, I'm sorry, what's the date for our next hearing?
23rd, but we do have another public hearing at 7:15. It's for a backland lot special permit, so it's not going to take too much time.
So maybe 7:30?
Let's do 7:30 then, yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue the environmental pools public hearing to the next hearing at 7:30.
Second.
Sounds good.
All in favor by roll call. Mike Gore.
Aye.
Peter Driscoll.
Aye.
Mark Sprague. Mark Sprague.
Yes.
I think I went out again. And Eric Nyland.
Aye.
I think you missed me.
Oh, and Daniel Spicer. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just reading it from the little boxes, so.
No worries.
Okay.
And then, Mark, do you want me to make a motion to adjourn?
Well, unless anybody really wants to stay on the line for more, I guess we would entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of vote by leaving? No.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night,
Also
everybody.
much appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.